Hey guys, God bless you. Psalm 119, and we're looking at verse 131. Psalm 119, 131. It's about spiritual desire, hunger, thirst. It says, I opened my mouth wide and panted, for I longed for your commandments. Wow. I opened my mouth wide and I panted. There's another verse in Psalms that talks about deer. As a deer panting at the water brook, so my soul longs for you. You see, your pet dog, they pant. That's how they keep cool, actually, with their tongue and their mouth open. And that is like, that ventilation is almost like a radiator, kind of expelling the heat. Well, the parched soul on a dry and thirsty land where there is no water, imagery is, written in the Middle East from a desert society where your life, you didn't have plumbing, and your life depended on making sure you stayed hydrated and that you found the aquifers and the artesian wells and you made sure you had your canteen, which I suppose was probably made out of an animal skin, available to you, and you had it. Well, he's basically saying, man, just like that, in my natural desire and craving, my heart is really yearning for and longing for and desiring God. When I was a kid, my mom kept saying, don't spoil your appetite. And in my house, we had snack food, and I would figure out how to get it because I was burning a lot of calories as a playful young man and riding my bike, all over the place and running around swimming and all the things I did growing up. And she would be preparing a meal, and she said, don't spoil your appetite with something else. And I think about this, chips at a Mexican restaurant, I mean, they crunch, they have salt, they're carbs, they're fried, they're tasty, all that. They're not very good for you, as it turns out. I saw a survival show where a guy named Les Stroud from Canada had a bag of corn chips, and he said, let me show you something. This makes great kindling. And he lit one on fire. And I mean, because of the oil content, it burned like a candle wick, and it burned for a while. I thought, oh my goodness, I'm throwing handfuls of that down right before a meal, and it's curbing my desire for the actual nutritious food. And that's, I think, what flesh and sin does. It's like we try to get satisfied with lesser things. And the psalmist is saying, I want to get my nutrition spiritually from God himself and from his word. So he's saying, I opened my mouth wide and panted, for I longed for your commandments. God, what do you say is most important? I value and esteem your words. I was talking to a gentleman at coffee this morning. We've been friends for about 30 years. He actually is an attorney and has served our church in different things regarding real estate law. And he had just read a book about, written by an author named Ellis, regarding the founding father, Washington. And the premise that this historian sets forth, they throw aside all the myths of throwing $1 over the Potomac River and chopping down the cherry tree and all those other things, which are distortions and myths. And also tries to sift through the sort of gilded embellishments and hero type status placed on Washington, and just kind of goes for evaluating the substance of the person. And, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, these were intellectually brilliant people. Some were more astute in politics than Washington. And yet all of these guys looked up to Washington. Washington, it boiled down that the the writer of the book, and my friend who just is almost finished with it, he said, the conclusion is Washington paid attention. He was thoughtful. He was the last to speak up. He listened. He would amass everybody and value the opinions and the viewpoints, which was like amazing leadership. And he was looking for, I guess, political leaders, they try to figure out their legacy. How am I going to figure into history? And I guess this author even acknowledged that Washington those were some of his considerations. But that, he surmised, was not his biggest goal. His biggest goal was care for the interests of the citizens and individuals of this fledgling new country. And his hope was, and his aspiration was, to set some things in motion that could ensure sustainability and progress and freedoms. And I want to tell you, those things come to us. I guess it came to him because he was a listener who then provided leadership after amassing the information, processing it, being thoughtful with it, and having the right goal. And here, this is a goal. Make this your goal. I opened my mouth wide and panted, for I longed for your commandments. It's when I was younger and I was serving a pastor in another church, when I began ministry, I was so immature that in our conversations, when he had something he needed to talk to me about, he didn't put me on the defensive, but I was often on the defensive due to my immaturity and insecurity, that instead of listening to him and opening up to his ideas, and sometimes even correction, instead of listening for the things that would be helpful for me to embrace and humble myself with and advance on, I was busy structuring reactionary things to counter. So I really wasn't paying attention. And I wonder if some of those great minds, the Benjamin Franklins and the James Madisons and the John Adams and the Thomas Jeffersons, maybe there was some ego. And, I mean, they were all founding fathers that, had their place, But Washington, first president, and he said, no, I don't want to be called the king. Let's make this a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Now, Jesus is the king, but yet he's called us to reign as kings in this life. And he's called us to hunger and thirst. And I'll close with this. Matthew, I just had it and I pulled my hand out of there, but it says in Matthew chapter 5, verse 6, Jesus in the Beatitudes, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Let's learn to hunger. Let's learn to desire. Let's keep a fresh passion. Let's not spoil our appetite with lesser things. God bless you.